resource-based economy, why is it then that TVP operates as a two-part business? A non-profit company, Future by Design, and a for-profit company, Venus Project Incorporated / Global Cyber Visions Incorporated. Yes, this is true. Jacques and Roxanne do operate in part as a business under an incorporated title. However, this was done under advice for their own protection. Say for example someone decided to sue TVP. If they weren't incorporated, it is very possible that their land can be taken away. Jacques and Roxanne had actually tried, I think it was three separate times, to get themselves registered as non-profit. However, it wasn't happening, so to cover the formalities and protect themselves, they had to take the incorporated option. Another thing we need to keep in mind is that the decision to be incorporated was really a mandatory one, since TVP sells books and videos, which is really, apart from the funds they get from the tours they do, it's really their only income. So what do you need if you want to sell books and videos if you live in Venus, Florida? Of course, you need a tax code, don't you? If you don't have a tax code for this purpose, then guess what happens? They chuck your sorry ass in prison. So the decision to go incorporated was really pretty much a given. But think about it this way, guys, come on. Is it really that bad for Jacques and Roxanne to sell books and videos, educational materials? In this system, you have to either sell yourself or sell something else in order to survive. Jacques and Roxanne sell educational materials which can, if heed is paid, help, no pun intended there, help people to realize that the money system is BS and make people want to move out of it. Big deal, guys. What would you prefer them to do? Work on tills in Tesco? Well, obviously, I don't know if they have any Tesco's in Venus, Florida, but any of the mind-numbing, soul-crushing jobs that we are forced into today? Come on, guys, this isn't a big deal. It's not like they're a huge, powerful corporation that's only out to line their own pockets. And you will definitely not find either of them lounging on a yacht with Frank Goodwin because of your money. Any funds they receive goes right back into the project and also helping them to survive. People always look the other way when huge pharmaceutical giants, supermarket chains, oil companies, fast food conglomerates and media corporations are raping us left, right and centre, but you want to jump on Jacques and Roxanne's backs for selling educational books and videos? Seriously, people, I think it's time we got a grip. Anyway, okay, question 5. Isn't the Venus Project just communism? No, not at all. In order to understand how a resource-based economy is not modelled upon, based upon, or inspired by communism, we must first go through a list of what communism has, but what a resource-based economy doesn't have. Okay? You ready? Here we go. Money, prisons, police, laws, social stratification, the human labour class, structures of human leadership. Need I go on? Seriously, do I need to go on? One of the main differences, besides this, between communism and what we advocate, is the fact that not even Marx himself considered the utilization of advanced automation to eliminate the need for boring and time-consuming human labour. No, of course he didn't, because even pure Marxism is based upon labour for income, which is what our current model is also based on. But then again, I can understand the association, though, since I can tell you that when the United States Bill of Rights and Constitution was first written, it was shown to some of their high school kids to give feedback. Do you know what they said? This sounds like communist propaganda. This is the Bill of Rights we're talking about. But you can see the association of like anything that's new. Oh no, it's communist. But there's a lot of tangents I can go on here, but I'm going to stop right there. Moving on. Question 6. Is the Venus Project a cult? In a quick answer, no. Even recently, very recently, Stefan Molyneux, who from Free Domain Radio, who, as some of you will be aware, has had some YouTube exchanges with Peter Joseph, some of the video responses going back and forth, about Stefan's disagreements with the feasibility of this direction. Even he on V Radio has condemned the accusation of this being a cult. In fact, I loved it when Stefan referred to the use of the word cult as an ad hom bomb. I just laughed my arse off when I heard that, because that was just so brilliant. I think that was particularly cool. But well done, Stefan. But anyway, moving on. But first of all, we need to define the terms. The fact is, the very word cult is now in modern times known as a charged word. It has a highly subjective meaning, and in fact multiple meanings, depending on how you wish to contextualize it. So when people say to you that this is a cult, then you need to get them to define their terms, because otherwise you'll be sat there for hours going round and round in circles, not understanding one another. But going upon the general definition that people want to slap on us, isn't a cult defined by the fact that the only stratification involved is one dictatorial leader, generally being, a charismatic figure, being led around by, leading around a blind, servile flock of sheep. Not actual sheep, but sheeple. But thinking on that definition, first of all, we need to stop applying our own projections of what we assume the leadership structure is when we, in respect to the movement, when we prefer to be conveniently blind to the fact that there is no leadership structure. Even Peter Joseph himself would feel quite embarrassed and quite likely disappointed to be treated as some sort of leader or idol. He considers himself just an ordinary guy, just like anyone else, or even just like any other member of the movement, whether they've been with the movement since it began or if they've just come on board. Granted, he acknowledges that he is the de facto founder. However, this in no way dictates, suggests, or implies that he should or does have any authority or power whatsoever. It's just like what Jacques and Roxanne say when people ask him, how long will it take to bring about a resource-based economy? They say, it's not up to us. We have no power. It's up to you. Because collectively, all of you have the power. With us as well, but us collectively, we have the power. It's not Jacques and Roxanne or Peter that actually have the power themselves. It's the collective that does. But then again, thinking about it in terms of whether it's a cult, any ideology can attract elements of fanaticism or misguided worship in those members who don't necessarily get it. However, if we apply this rationale on a grander scale, then guess what? Everything can be a cult. Everything. If you play Xbox, you're part of a cult by a certain definition of a cult. If you have a Facebook account, you're part of a cult. Even the people who accuse us of being a cult, we affectionately refer to them as trolls. That can be considered a cult. So, if you think about it in terms of that, if anything can be a cult, then you either need to redefine your terms, or expand your definition, or admit that maybe everything being a cult isn't such a bad thing. But anyway, moving on. because I haven't got much time left. Question 7. Does the Venus in the Venus Project refer to the Venus, the morning star, aka Lucifer? Why do people go out on such a negative and paranoid limb with this stuff? The Venus Project is called so because Jacques and Roxanne live in Venus, Florida. That's it. End of mystery. If they lived in, I don't know, say for example, Greenwich in London, it would possibly been called the Greenwich Project. You know, one thing that I've never heard anyone accuse us of for the use of the term Venus is the fact that Venus also happens to be the Greek goddess of love. But of course, the morning star, that's nice and negative, and debunkers always focus on the paranoid negative, side of things. But if you want to obsess on the morning star thing, think about what the last thing Jesus says in the Bible. I am your bright morning star. And if the morning star is Lucifer, then Jesus is saying that he is the morning star and Lucifer. So Jesus is Lucifer, if you want to paint it in those paranoid terms. Anyway, question 8. How about overpopulation? Our way of modern life has facilitated an exponential growth in population to the point of overpopulation. Considering this trend, wouldn't this just keep going on in a resource-based economy? Okay, this topic I kind of covered in my previous podcast. However, after receiving feedback from Douglas Millett, I thank you very much for this feedback, Doug, I realised how much more to it there was. Overpopulation is mainly a problem of poorer nations and poorer pockets of society. Wealthy nations maintain equilibrium, but poorer nations overpopulate. If life is good, we maintain proper balance naturally, so the better the quality of life, the lesser propulsion to want to procreate. And this is evidence. The fertility rates of wealthy nations is basically around about 1 to 1. In poorer nations, it's actually 7 to 1. So, that statistic speaks for itself, really. When life is much harder, dangerous and stressful, we're programmed biologically to procreate a lot and keep the genes going. But then again, even though I wouldn't really put much weight behind genes, but there we go. It's a natural contingency plan. I mean, keep procreating and there is a better chance that the number of the offspring you create will overcome the adversity of the environment. However, in better environments with food, shelter, water, clothing, education, etc., we don't have that pressure. We adapt to basic replacement and preservation instead of wanton consumption and over-replacement. It's more of a biological formality than cultural. We are biologically wired to propagate the species and keep it going. And this drive intensifies as a reaction to the environment of deprivation to overcompensate for possible losses that are made in a deprived environment. If you have 2 children, say for example, and you know that they have a very good chance of surviving, then there is less of a need to have something ridiculous like 10. But if 7 out of 10 children die from diseases or violence or starvation, for example, then you gravitate to having more kids in the hope that some will make it. Education also plays a big role in this process. When children are given direct, informative and insightful sex education, you arm them with the proper information and the proper motivation to have sex in a more sensible, considered and self-regulating manner. This optimized sex education would not make taboos out of anything. There will be no more covering up of any sexual preference out of shame, instead of only focusing on the bog standard norm of heterosexuality, because all that does is just creates undeserving mystique to practices that are just as deserving of our understanding than the basic process of procreation itself. I mean, people in poorer nations generally aren't exactly spending time studying or advancing themselves, Giving people other things to do with their time is also a very good idea. At the moment they're stuck, and the most primal of all activities, obviously, is sex. And since there's no contraceptive options generally open to them through